Everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Tonight we are going to make some lamb burgerettes with a kind of veggie rice pilaf, and we're going to bake up our sourdoughs. We've got a Gouda and black pepper, and then a chocolate almond loaf. And we're going to roast up some cauliflower, make some tzatziki sauce, just all sorts of deliciousness. So let's get our sourdoughs prepping and ready. This is our black pepper and Gouda. It's been cold proofing since last night. I'm going to flip it out onto our parchment paper here. And there we go. And let's give this guy a good score. I will lose my thing like I always do halfway through. Okay. Didn't pop out like I thought. I've been losing my blade. I got to get a new score, but it's just on my list of things I need to get that just never get gotten. Okay, we're just doing our kind of a little simple score here. I'm going to put this in my oval Dutch oven. So these were preheated at 500 for the last hour, so they are really, really hot. And put it in here. There we go. And now we're going to put our lid on, seal in that nice heat and moisture. And then we're going to get our chocolate sourdough. So this one I'm really excited about. So we have a nice almond crust on it. So those are slivered blanched almonds, but the inside has that almond paste in it, like a marzipan paste. And I think it's going to be scrumptious. So I'm hoping it will turn out because I've never done one like this before. But let's see. We're going to have to try to saw through those nuts. We'll give a nice score.
You have a question? Did you guys try the key lime pie?
We did. There's like a third, not even a third, a fourth of it left. It was really, really, really good. It turned out fantastic. It had like such a nice creamy yet light. And of course, as to my daughter's liking, it was like 2/3 graham cracker crust to like 1/3 of the filling, which personally I love too because I love the graham cracker crust, but it was delicious. There is very little left. Okay, let's put this guy in here. I'm hoping my inclusions aren't too heavy and will weigh it down, but last chocolate loaf I made was gorgeous as well. So here's to wishing me luck on that. Let's go pop these in the oven. I'm going to take one at a time. I have my oven preheated to 500 degrees. So we're going to cook them for 20 minutes at 500. Then we will take the lids off and cook for 450 for about 20 minutes. Let's get our second one in. And hopefully dinner will be all ready by then. There. I'm going to set my timer so I don't forget. Your timer is your best friend in the kitchen. Trust me, I forget all the time. Okay, let's start getting the rest of dinner ready. We're going to do our lamb in a little bit, so let me slide that over here. We're going to get our onions chopped up for our veggie rice pilaf. We're going to use part of our onion in here, and part of it's going to go in our lamb burgerettes. Which, if you don't know what a burgerette is, it's just a teeny tiny burger. They're just kind of cool and cute. I'm gonna get that name to like trend. I'm gonna get it to go. Okay, we'll use half for our burgerettes and half for our little pilaf. So we're gonna do some nice thin slices. And I kind of cut them not too terribly small because I think a nice little chunk to them will be delicious. And we're going to let them start to saute in our pan over here. Put about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in here. And this is where we're going to cook our rice in a little bit, but we're going to saute up some veggies first, which will just add a really lovely flavor to it. So let's start with our onions. And we have a little bit more. Let me grab out my tongs. We're going to give these a nice little stir, kind of coat them in that olive oil, and we're going to let them saute up. I'm going to turn it to about a 7, so medium high. For the remaining onion, this is going to go into our lamb burgerettes. I'm going to mince it, and then we're going to saute it a little bit, which will just give it a nicer flavor so it won't be quite as astringent in the lamb burgerette. So did lots of little thin slices, and now we'll mince it up, and we're going to give it a nice saute, and then we're going to also cook up some fresh herbs with it, and those will let those flavors come out a little bit more than just when we fry the little burgerettes in the pan. Okay, now I'm just going to go over a couple of times with my blade just to make sure I've got any bigger pieces get nice and diced. Now, this was a really large onion, so it's probably the size of 2 regular onions or 2 smaller ones, in case you're wondering exactly how much. There we go. And I'm going to grab my olive oil. We're going to put it in our saute pan, just about 2 tablespoons, because I have a nice big pan. If you're using a smaller pan, you need a little bit less. But you don't want to have skimp on it. Otherwise, you can get more burnt instead of caramelized. Let's add those onions in. And I'm going to let them start to caramelize up. Let me grab a little spatula here. I'm going to just stir them in the oil. And again, these are going to be for our little lamb burgerettes. So you're going to saute them up nicely. And they'll just have just a wonderful little flavor to it. Okay, just coating them around. And let's get our fresh herbs sauteing up in there as well. We'll throw them in. So I've got some sage here, picked them out from the garden, so I'm going to separate so I can show you guys. So we have, this is fresh sage. We've got about, when we chop it up, it's going to be about a tablespoon of fresh sage, which pairs lovely with the lamb. And then this is some oregano. It is both Greek oregano and then just your plain Jane oregano. I have them both in there. They taste very similar, but I just feel like it's a little bit more bougie. We're going to take off these stems. And I'm going to put some of the oregano in my rice. But the sage we're going to keep just for the lamb. Here we go. Just kind of pick off those little leaves there. But we'll add just a delicious, fresh kind of herby flavor and a little nice kind of color to our little burgerettes. There we go. So let's get our sage chopped up. And I find sage is one of those herbs that are best when you give them a good saute versus just throwing them in fresh as they are, because they're a little bit fuzzy. So if you've never worked with fresh sage, it's got a fuzzy texture to it, like a lamb's ear, you know, those little like soft leaves you would find outside when you were a kid. That's kind of what sage feels like. So I like to mince it and then saute it up until it's a little bit crispy, so it doesn't have that little fuzzy texture to it. But it also is so lovely with the lamb. Okay. And then we're going to use half of this in our rice dish. So I'm going to mince this up as well. I'll just go over it several times so we don't have any really big leaves. Okay. There we go. Got that. Move it right there. And then I have some fresh parsley here. We're going to use up, this is the last batch of store-bought. We were just out there picking out the garden, and the parsley is like probably the best herb right now. It's really in like full bloom. have got so many good leaves coming out of it. It's just, I think it's getting just the right amount of sun too. So it's really doing well. So we'll give this a nice little mince up as well. And this is going to go in our rice as well as in our meatball. So we've got our herbs nice and chopped up. There we go. Let's give our onions a nice stir. There's our caramelizing in. And then we're going to give our other ones over here for our rice. We're going to let that caramelize up nicely. Okay. Let's toss our sage in here. All of the sage is going in with these onions. And then half of the oregano is going in here for the lamb. And half is going to go in our rice. So that's about, it was about a tablespoon of minced up sage and then a half a tablespoon of minced up oregano in the meatballs, and a half is going into the rice. And then about a tablespoon is going into, of parsley is going into the lamb as well as the rice. For those of you at home, let's give this a good stir around too. I'm going to turn down the temperature just a little bit to about a 5. We'll do this to a 5 as well now that they're kind of crisping up. But we're going to just let those herbs cook up. It brings out the flavors a little bit more. And then we're going to chop up a pepper here. So this is just a sweet green bell pepper, like a yellow one. Red, orange will do better. The Loki, no barks. Do better than the green. Green's a bit more bitter. And fun fact, in case you didn't know, this is a girl green pepper, or bell pepper. Loki. And because it has 4 prongs here. So like 1, 2, 3, 4. And tastes just a little bit nicer. We're going to give this a nice little chop up for our pilaf too. So it's going to have onions and peppers, and then we're throwing some cherry tomatoes as well. And they'll just have a lovely kind of bright flavors to it. Here. There we go. And we'll do a nice kind of simple dice on this. And then we're going to toss this in with our onions and our fresh spices over here. We're going to let that kind of get a nice saute on it. And this is going to be for our rice pilaf that we'll have with our little lamb burgerettes and our sourdough. We'll make a tzatziki sauce with it. And we're going to roast up some cauliflower. Okay. Let's give this a nice stir. They're beautiful. Now let's get these tomatoes. We just have about a handful of cherry tomatoes, and we're just going to kind of quarter them, and these are going to go in our rice pilaf. They'll just add a nice little bit of acidity to it, which will pair well with the chicken broth that we're going to cook it in, and just gives it a nice burst of color and flavor for it as well. And I was like, oh, these are ready to be used. A lot of times I just throw things together because I was like, okay, this ingredient is almost past its prime. We got to get ready to use it. And before it goes on, I'm like, this will go perfect in there when you don't need a whole lot. Okay. Give this again. We're going to give a nice little stir. And let's add in our tomatoes. And they're also going to let out a little bit of nice kind of liquid that will be really flavorful in our rice. Okay. We're going to let those simmer for just a second. And let's prep up our cauliflower here to go roast in the oven. Because we'll put these in for that last 20 minutes at 450. in the oven underneath the sourdough breads. And this is just a lovely curried kind of cauliflower. I love, this is one of my favorite ways to make cauliflower. And it's just, it has so much flavor to it. And it's just so, so delicious. Okay. So we've got our cauliflower here. I'm just going to go through and just take off some of these really big stalks, because I tend to like the florets the best versus the meatier parts. There we go. And just kind of break some of them up to slightly smaller pieces. There we go. And just kind of cube these up because you want them to kind of be bite-sized when you take them out. There we go. You don't need to do much cutting on them because they're pretty small to begin with. Now we're going to bunch them all together for this first part because we are going to coat them with some olive oil. I'm just going to give a quick stir here. And again, another little stir. We're going to coat these with about a tablespoon or so of olive oil. I'm just going to do a nice little drizzle over. And now we're going to coat them up with some spices. We're going to use a little onion powder. This will give them a nice savory kick. About a teaspoon. You don't need a lot. And then we're going to use about a teaspoon of cumin. This is going to give it a nice kind of earthy taste, which will pair well with.
A question. Have you ever used cauliflower rice?
I have used cauliflower rice and I like it, but none of my kids or my husband likes it. So I don't make it often. We're going to use about a teaspoon and a half of turmeric, right? Maybe a teaspoon of turmeric. Turmeric can have a strong flavor. Now, if your spices are old, then you're going to want to use a little bit more because old spices are a bit more dull. And then we're going to use some curry. This is where we'll use about 2 teaspoons of curry. And I love curry. You could also, if you like that sweet and curry flavor together, you could throw in some raisins in here. That also tastes really great. And then we're going to add a little bit of garlic salt. Just a good shake over. It's about, I want to say, a teaspoon. And now we're just going to give them a nice coat. Put them all together, get all that nice spices and seasonings on them. Now, you can always do this in a bowl and then dump them out, but I find it works just great on here, and then you can keep it all on one pan, makes less dishes. Okay, and then we're just going to spread them out. I always try to put the little crowns facing up because I think they roast a little bit better that way. There we go. And then we'll pop these in when we're ready for the sourdough. Let me give my hands a quick rinse. Now let's check on our rice over here. I'm going to give it a nice stir. Not rice. This is going to be for the rice. That's I'm already thinking ahead in my time. Okay, let's get our rice actually going. So we've got 3 cups of water. Let me get my strainer. We want to rinse our rice. It should be, make sure Jack likes to run off with my strainer a lot. So I make sure there. We're going to just rinse it out in the sink until, for like 30 seconds to a minute. This is 2 cups of rice. And that's just going to give you a nicer end product. Gets rid of some of that starch in the beginning. So your rice will be less mushy. And any of that kind of leftover chemical from the processing. And this is jasmine rice. There we go. And I say you don't need to spend ages. A quick rinse is better than no rinse. Okay, we're going to add this in here. Give it a nice kind of stir around in these vegetables. I want to make sure I'm coating them up with all that good like seasonings on them. There we go. And then we're going to pour in 3 cups of water, just like you're going to be cooking like a regular rice. So 2 cups of rice needs 3 cups of water. Let's see, let's give this a nice stir. You can really smell that sage. Now I'm just going to give this a good stir around. I'm actually going to end up and just tradesy with this one. So just kind of nice little stir. And then we're going to put in a big spoonful of chicken bouillon to give it a nice kind of savory flavor as well.
You have a question. What cookware do you use?
So pretty much I use Hexclad, All-Clad, and then my Dutch ovens are Le Creuset. So I made the switch over to Hexclad about 2 years ago. And I love it. I've had them for 2 years. There's no scratches on them. They have survived my family, which is a lot. I use them every day. So they were definitely worth the money on them. My All-Clad I got as a wedding gift like 17 years ago, and they're going amazing. And I use these a lot for like, sauteing. This is like called like a saucepan versus a frying pan because it has that nice like lip on it. But I love it. And for my Dutch ovens, Le Creuset, because my mom's always been gifting them to me over the years. And that's what she kind of had growing up. Okay, when this comes to a boil, we will turn it down to low and put the lid on and simmer it just like regular rice. This is our little herby concoction for our lamb meatballs. We're sauteing up. I'm going to turn this off. And then let's get our meatballs going. I realize I got to go grab a piece of bread and some eggs because we're going to make a panade, which is a bread and egg paste to it. So let me grab these real quick. And perfect. So we're going to be 2 pounds of lamb. So we need 2 eggs and then 2 pieces of soft bread because you're going to drench this bread in cream to make a paste, and it's going to be the binder in these little burgerettes versus like a breadcrumb, and it's just a lot nicer. So we've got 2 here, and soft bread is what you want. Chewy bread like a French bread or sourdough, it's just that crust doesn't get like pasty, which just means you'll have big chunks of crust in your little burgerettes. We're going to take some heavy cream and we're going to pour it over our 2 slices of bread. Now you just want enough to make them soggy, but you don't want to be dripping in the cream. So it's about like 1/4 a cup of cream for them. And you let them kind of soak up the milk. And then we'll add in the egg, and that's going to be the binder paste. It's going to make like just like think about it as a edible glue for the meatballs. Okay, we're going to crack in our 2 eggs. And then we're going to have to take a little pause because our sourdoughs are ready for their lids to go off. So let's bring this, because we're going to pop this in the oven underneath, and then we're going to take the lids off and then hope, fingers crossed, that our chocolate loaf popped. So let's grab these guys out. Got our first one. I'll slide it, and then let me grab the second one. Okay, so here's the chocolate loaf. This is, ooh, it did pop. I'm excited for it. We've got, you can see the kind of the almond filling in there. And then this is our Gouda and black pepper, and that is popping as well. So we're going to slide these both back into the oven. I'm really excited about this chocolate almond one because I love almond filling, like that marzipan, and I think it's going to be so good. Okay, we've got those in there. I'm going to put my oven temperature down to 450. There we go. And then I'm going to set my timer for 20 minutes. And that with the lid off, and that's going to give me a nice kind of golden brown crust. I don't want a dark brown crust. I like my sourdough to be a bit more tender than to be tough and chewy, because I like to have it for like toast the next day and stuff. Okay, I'm going to turn my rice down to low now. We're going to give it one good stir. And then we're going to cover it up and we're going to let it steam up. But always make sure you get a good stir before to prevent any of that sticking on the bottom. Now we'll put the lid over and it'll be ready for its reveal. Time to serve up. Okay, we've got our 2 slices of bread soaked in our cream with 2 eggs. Now we are going to add in our sauteed onions and sage and oregano and parsley to this mix. This is going to add just a lovely flavor. And make sure I have that off. Let's pop those eggs. We're going to give this a good mash. Since they're warm, I'm going to mash it with my spoon versus my hands right away. That way they will cool down a little bit. Here we go. So we've got it mushing up all together. This is going to be our nice little binder paste. And then we are going to add just a bit more herbs. We're going to add a little bit of garlic salt. So since we have 2 pounds of meat, you're going to want about a tablespoon of garlic salt, which if you don't have garlic salt, you could use a teaspoon and a half of garlic powder with a teaspoon and a half of salt to give you kind of the same result.
You have a question? What type of flavor does sage have?
It has a earthy flavor to it. So it has like a kind of a it's like a it's really hard to describe. It's very earthy and it plays along well with the gaminess of the lamb. So it's kind of like a rosemary, but not it has that mustiness of a rosemary. It's hard to describe, but it works really well with the gaminess of lamb. And it is delicious. Where is my black pepper? And then we're going to use a little bit of black pepper, about a half a teaspoon. Give this a nice little stir up. And we're going to put in about a tablespoon of Worcestershire. And this acidity in here is going to work really well with the natural fat in the lamb to give it a really tenderness to it. So now I've got 2 pounds of ground lamb. I think got some scissors right here. And I will say, if you've never used ground lamb, it is really, really delicious. It does have a little bit more of a gamey flavor, but again, if you spice it up nicely, you don't really notice the gaminess of it, but it's just lovely, especially those more earthy herbs like sage pairs really well with it, even rosemary. And it's just a nice, just to do a change up. Let's get this guy in. And it's about the same cost as like a nice pack of ground beef or bison. Bison's a little bit more expensive. But I think it's like $8.99 a pound. So it's more expensive than like your grocery store cut of ground beef. But if you're getting the nice like ground sirloin or the nicer organic ground beef, it's about the same price.
Which store do you get them at?
I got this one at Publix, but I know you can also get them at Whole Foods and Kroger here. You can't get ground lamb at Costco. I haven't seen it there yet, but it's typically in like where they have all the ground meats. They have just all the different options there. Okay. I'm going to go through. We're going to shape these up into little burgerette patties, but we're going to take here and we're going to really mush our herbs into our lamb. So we're going to just kind of squeeze it through your fingers, and that's going to get them all dispersed. And this is going to be the binder that kind of holds them together and keeps them nice and tender. Versus if you were to leave out the egg and the bread and the cream, it would have more of like a hamburger texture. This is going to have like a meatball texture to it. Okay, I'll get these nice. And just make sure you mush it until they're all of it's mixed together, and it will it starts out runnier, but then it thickens up. And that's just for once it's mixed through. Here we go. And give it a good. Okay. Let me see if I can grab a little pan here. I'm just going to shape my little burgerettes on here, but we're going to pan fry them so that they get a nice crispy edge on them. So we're going to shape these up. And so it's essentially, instead of a meatball, we're going to just do little patties, which I call burgerettes. They work much better in the pan frying process than if you were to fry a meatball up, but they give you that nice crispy crust with them. And these are going to be my little lamb burgerettes that are going to go with our our vegetable rice pilaf we made with peppers, onions, tomatoes, some fresh herbs, and our roasted curried cauliflower. So kind of I would say Greek, Middle Eastern theme to tonight's dinner. It's such a nice day. The weather is just like kind of these more Mediterranean-esque meals with this time of the year. And that's a great way to take lamb and take such a homey meat and make it, more of a summertime thing. Yeah, I was deciding doing this. I was almost thinking about doing a little lamb meatballs with some homemade naan. But I was like, oh, we just had naan a couple days ago. Let's change it up. And I had my sourdough that I needed to bake up. So just changing it up. But it's going to be delicious. And my kids really love lamb. Especially like lamb roast or when I take the lamb roast, cut it up and saute it, or lamb lollies for Easter. I made lamb lollies. That is the kids. They love lamb lollies. So we're going to go.
Question. Are you doing a cookout for Memorial Day?
Yes, we are going to do a cookout. I think we're going to do burgers, your good old American, hamburgers. And then we're also going to do some barbecue chicken because we just had ribs earlier this week, and we have steak a lot because my family loves steak. So we're going to go with just the classics this weekend. I'm going to make my famous potato salad, which everybody loves, and my 3-bean salad and my pasta salad. So I've got a couple of these good things I make. And then I have these kind of bougied up baked beans I make that are so good. You take baked beans and you add bacon and onions and barbecue sauce to them. And it's a great way to jazz up something out of a can that makes them a little bit special for it. And then I'm probably going to make strawberry shortcake. I always have strawberry shortcake on Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day. For some reason, that's just something I always had growing up on those holidays. And I just keep continuing the trend. Here we go. And I don't think I have enough. We're just going to add these to these 2 smaller ones. There we go. Okay, let's get this out. I'm going to wash my hands up. And get a nice coat here. There we go. And we're going to start sauteing these up in our pan. We're going to have to do them in batches because we have quite a few of them. So that same pan we sauteed our onions and our herbs in, we're going to use that, and it's going to have some nice little remnants in it, which will give them also, again, a little bit of a flavor. So we're going to add about 2 tablespoons of olive oil, just enough to kind of keep them from sticking on the bottom of our pan. I'll let it warm up, and then we'll add our burgerettes in. Just slide these out of the way for when those sourdoughs come out. And now we got to make two things. We're going to make a tzatziki sauce and a little cucumber salad to kind of go with tonight's meal. So while our oil is heating up, let me start prepping up our stuff for our tzatziki sauce, it's going to be like a garlic kind of sauce. It's going to go over garlic and cucumber sauce over our lamb burgers. Just pairs really well with it. So again, I have my English cucumbers here. I'm going to save that one over here. You don't need too much for the tzatziki sauce. So we're going to just kind of chop this up into, I'm kind of essentially going to make it into like a small dicing or a mince to it, because you don't want the cucumber chunks to be like in your face in the tzatziki sauce. You want them to be more subtle and mild. So we're just going to do a nice kind of fine mince, but they add just this really freshness to kind of the sauce, which can be a little bit like garlicky, which is more of a stronger, heavier herb. And so this will just lighten it up just a smidge. Here we go. Just go over these just a couple more times. And then we're going to add this into my little bowl. And I realized I grabbed this size bowl and I need a bigger one. Okay. Before we go on to next, let's get these burgerettes frying up. I'm going to grab a spatula. Let's see which one you will do well. Actually, I'm going to grab a second one. That way I can slide under and transfer these a little bit easier without having to get my hands all over them. So we're just going to push them down and we're going to saute these and fry them up. And so they're going to have they're just an easier way to cook them than to cook meatballs on here, because your meatballs will already flatten out when you try to fry them in a pan. So they'll give you that kind of crispy edging on it, but they cook a little bit nicer than if you, when you bake up meatballs, they're a bit softer edging. This gives you that nice crispy edge. There we go. And they're just cute. So we'll do the first batch. Let's see, 6, 8. We're going to transfer one more so we can get them all kind of frying up in the nice spot. There. Okay. So we're going to let these cook on over medium heat, and then we'll flip them and cook them a little bit through on the halfway side. Okay. Let's get our tzatziki sauce and our cucumber salad, which I think just always pairs really well with Greek food. So we're going to do, here we go. So these are English cucumbers, so they've got a more delicate skin, which means you don't have to peel them. So they're really tender to bite, just like baby cucumbers. If you're going to use like the classic, like the traditional cucumber that most people know growing up, you're going to want to peel that skin because that can be a bit chewy and not as nice to eat. Just gets that kind of tough texture on it. There we go. And we'll slice these. You know, one kitchen gadget that I have that I never use that was like a random buy was one of those vegetable mandolins where you like set up it and then you're like, it's so cumbersome to get out. It's like, why do I want to spend 5 minutes setting this up, then having to clean it to save me I don't even think it saves you any time, just to have more precise cucumber slices. So I will say, if you're thinking about getting one of those, don't. They're just a waste of space and they're a pain to clean. And you can do it much easier with a knife. We're going to take some red onions here. I'm going to slice them up thin. They're going to go in our cucumber salad. Here we go. And you want to use red, or you can use white onions for this. You're going to want to stick away from the Valdalia or the yellow onions because those are better cooked. So we have that for that. And we're going to put some green onions in here with our tzatziki sauce. So I have 2 green onions. And I'm actually going to take a little bit more of that whiteness off. And we're going to mince these up to add into our tzatziki sauce. And we're just going to do, I'm going to go over, I'm doing small little slices here, and then I'm going to go back over it with my knife because I don't want to have really big chunks of onions in the sauce. I'd rather it be smaller and, less noticeable. And it will make it to where you don't get like a big overpowering of it. Now, if you didn't, you could use chives for this, or you could use red onions if you had that. It would work well too. Again, you don't want to do a yellow onion on that. And then we're going to grab a little bit of parsley here. And just a pinch for this. We're going to mince it up and put this in our tzatziki sauce because the tzatziki is going to have this nice like herby cucumber with some garlic and lemon juice. It'll be just lovely. Okay. We've got that in there. Let's get these first round of these burgers flipped. There we go. We've got this lovely kind of nice crispy edge on it. That's what I was talking about, how you don't get this crispy edge baking them in the oven, and it gives you just such a nice flavor to it. There we go. Okay, got this. Want to let them kind of crisp up and cook there. And now for our cucumber salad, we're going to use some dill, fresh dill. A little bit of dill goes a long way. So you don't need as much as you want. This is going to be about a teaspoon of fresh dill. If you're going to use dry dill, half a teaspoon. Dill is very, very potent. And the dry dill is more potent than the fresh one. So we've got this teeny little bundle here. And we're going to give it a little mince up.
So it's not a big deal, it's a little deal.
That is very good, very clever. Clever boy. So yes, a little deal. You know how many times I say that to Teddy when he's upset? And I'm like, is this a big deal or a little deal? And he's like, it's a big deal. And I'm like, it's not a big deal. This is not a big deal. We don't need to freak out like that. Okay. We're going to put in some garlic for our tzatziki sauce. We're going to want about a teaspoon of this. I'm going to have to get a spoon, aren't I? I am almost down and out of this ginormous jar. Okay, we want a teaspoon in there because it's going to have this just great, like, garlicky flavor. And then we're going to add some fresh cream. About, I want to say, 2 tablespoons. And a little bit of mayo. Let me rinse this off real quick. So this mayo is going to be kind of like a nice little fat binder to it. Gives it a little bit more lush. Do one more. We're going to do 2 tablespoons. So equal parts cream to equal parts. Trying to put the garlic lid on the mayo. And a small drizzle of olive oil. That way you can truly call it an aioli. We're going to give this a nice little mix together. And then we'll add some fresh lemon juice once we got this kind of mixed together. That fresh lemon juice will just add a nice citrusy note to it, and it will help kind of thicken it up a little bit because it will curdle some of that cream to kind of make a cream fresh. Okay. We're going to take that seed out. Good squeeze. There's a hidden seed. Get the other one out too. So just half a lemon. We're going to squeeze that over. Give it a good stir. We're going to let it sit, and then we'll add some salt and pepper in a little bit, but we want it to sit with that lemon juice in it. Our other bit of it is going to go, we're going to use half of this in our cucumber salad, and we're going to get a little bit of vinegar as well. But the lemon juice adds just a really fresh note, which I like to do half and half with vinegar. We'll do this, and we're going to grab our sourdough out real quick. I'm going to turn this down to low because we'll take those off when we come back. Okay. I'm going to do a slide over here. Ooh, beautiful. So we have our traditional loaf. This is gorgeous. It has a lovely pop in it. This was a Gouda and black pepper. I hear you. We'll get this. And this is our chocolate loaf, which has chocolate chips, slivered and blanched almonds, and almond marzipan paste. I hear you. We'll grab those out in just a second. I'm going to cancel them off, but we'll keep them in there warm. We want to take these out as quickly as possible, but we'll do that. But let me switch my burger patties out, and then we'll move those up because these are ready to come off, and we're ready for our next ones. So here is our gorgeous lamb burgers that we made with our ground lamb. We seasoned them with some fresh sage and parsley, oregano, and some diced up onions that we caramelized first. Here we go. So we've got our first set of burgerettes here. Now we're going to put our second set on. There we go. We're going to cook them. And this is just, you could always do these in the oven, but I will say pan frying them, and make sure instead of doing them in a ball, pan fry them in a mini patty will give you these just great crispy edge on it, which just tastes delicious. There we go. Let's slide and find space. Our last one on. Beautiful. Okay. And now we are going to take our sourdough out. You always want to take them out of your Dutch ovens because your Dutch ovens will stay hot for like forever afterwards. It take a while to cool down. And look, you get this beautiful crust on it. And this is why I just do 20 minutes at 450 versus longer, so it has just this nice light blonde color. And this is our chocolate loaf. You can see all those almonds are coming off. With our almonds, it has chocolate chips, and it has almond filling in it, which is like a marzipan paste that I crumbled up in the middle with chocolate chips. So it's going to be a really like decadent dessert bread to go with for it. And we're going to move our things here, but this is our sourdough bread that we put Gouda and ground black pepper in it. So it's just going to have like this, if you've never had that combination, it's together, that pepper really, really goes well with the Gouda and the creaminess of it to give you this kind of savory, peppery bread, but it's not overpowering, but it is one of my husband's favorites. Okay, let's get these out of the way because they are hot, hot, hot. And let's finish up our thing. I'm going to grab my vinegar over here.
How long do you preheat the Dutch oven before you bake the bread?
So I preheat them for like an hour. Now, sometimes I don't get a whole hour in, but 30 minutes because you want them to be hot and you want them to be consistently hot. So you want their temperature to be up because that helps when you cook it in there. It keeps it that temperature, but it keeps the moisture in it. So you don't have to go through with like spraying it with water or putting a water bath in there. So I always just pop them in there about, an hour before. And that gives you the best pop. If doing less, then they don't spring up quite as much. We added our fresh lemon juice to this. We're going to add in about a teaspoon and a half. which is about 2 capfuls of vinegar. And then we're going to add in, we're doing kind of a creamy cucumber salad, a little bit of cream, about, I want to say, 1/4 of a teaspoon or 1/4 of a cup. And we're going to give it some garlic salt. There we go. And that's going to kind of like do a light pickle on it. So it's not a super strong pickle flavor, but it has this nice kind of creamy cucumber salad for it. And then we're going to go grab our cauliflower out of the oven because that is just about done. But I want to give this a good stir up and mix it, kind of get it soaking in that lemon juice and that vinegar. And see, when that lemon juice and that vinegar hits that cream, it's kind of curdle it and make a cream fresh. So it will be as if you could use sour cream if you don't have, you know, cream in the place. It works well. There we go. Okay, we've got that. Now,
you got a comment that your sourdough always looks great. What's your secret?
You know what? It's really, I found a good recipe that works great, and making sure my starter is happy. I feed it about 4 to 6 hours beforehand, and then it bubbles up and pops, and that's when I know it's ready. Let me give our meatballs a quick flip here, our meat patties. There we go. And then we're going to go grab our cauliflower out of the oven, and we should be ready to serve up in just a second. There we go. Burgerettes. I know. My little burgerettes. But they just cook so much nicer when you can have a chance to fry them up versus in the oven, because they get that crispy crust that is just so delicious. And I don't want to forget this. Now that we've had it set, we're going to add a little bit of salt to our aioli, about a 1/2 teaspoon, and a little bit of black pepper, about 1/4 of a teaspoon. And this is going to be our kind of like our tzatziki garlic aioli stuff that is just going to be lovely with the lamb. Okay, let's go grab that cauliflower. That is ready and roasting. And beautiful. So here you can see it's got that nice crispy edge on it. And it is spaced with curry and turmeric and cumin and a little garlic salt and olive oil. And it's just lovely. Put it right here. Awesome. If you're wondering the size difference between my 2 loaves, this is actually a bigger base loaf. So this is a 1.5 loaves. I used 750 grams of bread flour. This one I only used 500 grams of bread flour. So they're slightly bigger, but we don't need as much as I would want, a lot of dessert. Got to limit because I'm always baking stuff. Okay, let's check out our rice. Beautiful. So it's steamed up. You've got all of our veggies on there, so it's really pretty. And there, we're going to give it, I'm going to get my little shovel. This is my little shovel spoon that I always think. I'm going to give it a nice stir, kind of make those vegetables all the way around. But this is just a great way to create kind of like a vegetable rice that has lots of flavor in there that is good to serve like the little burgerettes and everything with. Okay, we've got our rice, and let's plate up our dinner. Let's see where I use that. Okay, we're gonna get a spatula for our, my fish spatula keeps catching. There we go. So we're gonna put on our rice. I'll just have that right there because we're going to put our little burgerettes on it when we get to it. We've got our curried cauliflower, which is roasted and it's so good. It has just such a great flavor to it. I'm going to slide these down. Now we're going to add our burgerettes, and I put them right on top of the rice. And we're going to top it with our homemade kind of tzatziki sauce, which will just, you can mix it into the rice and it's just so delicious. And then we've got our kind of fresh cucumber salad. Let me grab a couple more cucumbers on there. which is just a nice little pop of freshness with it. And then, of course, we'll serve it up with our homemade sourdough bread, which will be ready to cut into in about 5 minutes. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, show you what we're making for our family, and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of our recipes, the best way to do that is just go to that link, find that video, and then rewatch and cook along again with me again. Well, guys, thanks again for joining us here today. Don't forget to like